So we're going to look at this match between EG and SadBoys and focusing on one player in particular. This time it's going to be Outworld, Devourer, and this is played by Iceiceice. These players don't really need much introduction because I'm aware that, I think people are very aware of who these are. He's playing up against this Juggernaut and also Jakiro. For example, these two players he's laning against, one TI5 with EG as well, Fear and PPD. So these are pretty established players. However, what we want to look at in particular at the first 3-4 minutes of the game is watch how the creep equilibrium is kept in the same position entirely for the first 3-4 minutes of the game, and it never really moves up towards the Dyer's tier 1 tower, and the creep equilibrium is very well maintained. And the benefit of this is that really any offlane hero benefits greatly from having the first 3-4 levels being secured. And it basically means is that if you have any offlane hero that's very weak on the first 1 or 2 levels, and you have this support Tusk, which can't really do that huge amount in the lane, you pretty much have this OD gets to lane solo at the moment because Tusk is basically on mid lane and allows Tusk to rotate, and OD has some levels. So this is just a pretty good way of starting your lane regardless of what hero you're at, but a disadvantage in. But how did they actually manage to maintain that creep equilibrium is what's the interesting part here. So let's go backwards. So Tusk ends up camping up here at 42-43 seconds, and he waits for the next second creep wave to come out in the game, and he ends up pulling it this direction. He then goes and ends up blocking this creep camp here, which at 60 seconds it ends up being blocked actually by the creeps and not by Tusk. So the advantage of doing this is that you can tank the creeps and get them to meet your creeps at any point that you feel like, and that kind of just gives you that extra ability to manipulate the wave. And you can actually get these melee creeps to go and aggro the range creep at the very start when they meet each other, which basically pulls the lane back in your favor rather than having melee creep versus melee creep. Because this range creep has more damage and he will push the lane faster. So you don't want those ones to die on the enemy team very early on because it'll push your lane. So then what ends up happening is that pretty soon afterwards we have 150, 153, and PPD has not gone to try and stack this camp. He's basically just stayed in the lane and tried to harass this Tusk, which basically has very little benefit to the lane. But I guess that maybe he was trying to just play defensive or something. But anyways, we come up to the next time that he wants to maybe stack or pull on PPD here on the Jakiro, and he goes and tries and stacks this. He tries to pull it up this direction. He was mistimed again here. Even a TI winner can mistime a creep pull. And you're supposed to cut like the tree over here and pull the creeps up this direction, but he never ended up doing that. And instead the creep wave constantly stays down here. So pretty much then he can't even go again to pull the creeps. He's wasted so much time on PPD here on the Jakiro. And pretty much we have again, they're going on Iceiceice here. And this is actually beneficial to Iceiceice because now this creep wave or this camp is not being stacked or pulled. So even though Tusk is off doing his own stuff over here, going to gank mid lane, Iceiceice has created his own effective distraction here. But basically we have no stacking or pulling going on during that time. So if both of those things end up working, he pulls his next creep wave and gets this double stack that actually Jakiro ended up stacking. So this is a very good manipulation of how the support this position 5 wants to play, and it's making it awkward for them. And pretty much even though the OD doesn't get a lot of these last hits, we end up seeing now Jugger is not going to have much of an impact against OD, and Jugger just ends up dying pretty soon after this because OD has gotten levels and damage here. So we have the OD gets spun and teleports back to his tier 1 tower, and Tusk actually goes in here in a second and just does this, and Jugger has no spin at this point, so he's just trying to heal, and that's all he can do and run away, and he gets killed off of this. So the advantage of not teleporting back to your fountain and re-engaging was a really smart idea there, and actually that's kind of the difference that can be to catch players out. They think that, oh, it's pretty obvious he goes back for mana, but OD can always regenerate the mana with his passive. So now when Jugger returns to lane after just dying, He gets banished here, but OD now has no banish. So this is usually the point of where OD doesn't have any defensive mechanism once his astral imprisonment is down, so he just has to run away. But at this point, OD has a huge amount of health regen, both from the Ring of Health and Ring of Regen, and pretty much he can sustain in lane and take that bit of harass. Now Tusk has teleported in here, and this fight ends up kind of Jugger acts as like a divider. He's defending the defending Jakiro from OD getting closer and acting almost like a wall in between them for the patting, because OD can't keep taking more damage. So pretty much OD of the Iceiceice has managed to do that again, and you can see now he's moving in aggressively. This may look like a bad position, however what the Juggernaut doesn't see is this Enchantress moving in over here, and the Enchantress is going to end up trying to get a kill here. And Fear is actually smart enough on Jugger to actually run away and realizes very quickly that this is bait. Now PPD unfortunately on the other hand doesn't end up noticing this, and he ends up getting baited by the Iceiceice OD, and basically Iceiceice has still astral imprisonment, which can save him from any extra damage that he might end up taking. So pretty much they basically outplayed PPD. PPD is a lot of the reason why maybe Iceiceice snowballs a little bit out of this lane, so maybe that's something you could work on potentially. Now one of the other things is just like this cheeky little play, and I really like this one. Maybe like OD players do this all the time, but when the creepwave is pushing in, the tower is attacking the creeps, and Juggernaut generally wants to be attacking the creeps right at this point, but OD ends up banishing him during this time, so he has no ability to interact with these creeps whatsoever, and OD gets to deny them. However, this play, even though it's pretty cheeky, ends up getting punished by the SadBoys here pretty straightforward. Now the only thing is that they did rotate 2 supports for that play, but unfortunately the EG team don't end up taking huge advantage of those 2 support rotations. Now OD has hit level 6 at this point at 9 minutes into the game, and pretty soon he almost has a meteor hammers, which is almost the timings you would expect of a mid lane hero, but in the off lane. So here's the banish play that you kind of see again, just disrupting his last hitting there that we saw before, but not being as over like committing as he was prior. And basically the Juggernaut is now scared to go near the creeps, because at this point what Jugger has is he only just has enough mana to use his Blade Fury and his ulti. He has 280 mana, and he'll probably have to use like a Mango or something, but he actually, I think maybe his intelligence is stolen from his one deck that he got earlier, so he can't cast both of them, so he has only 280 mana and he needs 300. So pretty much the Jugger is in this scenario where he doesn't want to get his mana burn, because once he runs out of the Omni Slash, he doesn't have any defensive way of like dealing with the lane. So you can see that Jugger's being pressured here. They have 3 heroes top and they're pushing in the lane, so he spins and teleports out, and now OD has a 10 minute and 30 second meteor hammer. This is a pretty insane start to the game, and he's tanking the tower with the siege creep, and pretty much the siege creep can keep hitting this tower, so they kill the tower much quicker. So that's very good exploitation of using and manipulating the creeps at many points in the game. Now a very typical rotation is what you're going to end up seeing right now, which is once the offlaner ends up killing this tower, they push in the creep wave a bit, and then they'll teleport to mid lane to go and take whatever ends up being a fight there, or looks for some sort of rotation to mid lane. And you end up seeing this in a little bit. He just farms these creeps, pushes it into the tier 2, and now rotates here. Now unfortunately what ends up happening here, which ends up not making the game so great, is that they don't end up winning this fight. The fight is not really all that important, but this is what actually can pretty much, if they win this fight, they would have pretty much won the game. Very, very simple and straightforward. But the game goes on a bit longer, and they end up like EG win anyways, regardless of this. This generally kills your momentum in matches, and you want to basically capitalize and get further and further ahead off of that like early winning laning stage. And if you don't believe me that the early winning laning stage, look at the net worth just before that fight where OD died. OD is 3rd highest on net worth, and we have the 3 cores on EG being at the top. So that's like just shows you like any match that you have where there's 3 cores on your team who have the highest net worth, you win like probably like 95 to 99% of those matches. So that's definitely something that, you know, is very striking about the laning stage of this match. So hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown. If you want to see more of this, make sure you subscribe. I'll be doing more of these every day during the DPC.